I'm testing something big and you're part of it. Right now, as you're watching this, I'm going to ask you questions, not easy questions, not questions with obvious answers. Questions that will make you think about what you actually value versus what you think you should value. And your answers, how you respond in the comments, will tell me something important about who's watching, what matters to you, and whether we're all as different as we think we are. If you're willing to be part of this test, comment testing below and then answer every question I ask as honestly as you can. I'm recording this because I've spent months talking about family and values and what matters, about screens destroying childhood, about communities fragmenting, about the loss of connection and presence and meaning. And thousands of you have responded. You've agreed. You've shared your own stories. You've told me I'm right about what we've lost. But I want to test something. I want to see if what we say we value matches what we actually choose when forced to decide. Because it's easy to agree with ideas in theory. It's harder to make choices that align with those ideas when the choices cost us something real. So I'm going to give you scenarios, real scenarios, choices you might actually face. And I want you to tell me honestly, without performing for anyone, without trying to give the right answer, what you would actually choose, not what you think you should choose, what you would choose. And at the end, I'll tell you what I think your answers reveal. Not about whether you're good or bad, but about what we actually value, what we're willing to sacrifice for, what matters enough to choose even when it costs us. This is a test. You're part of it. Let's begin. Here's your first choice. And this one is hard. This one doesn't have an easy answer. This one forces you to choose between two things that both matter. Your child or grandchild is growing up, and you have the ability to influence their path. You can guide them toward one of two futures, not both. You have to choose. Option A. They become very successful. They achieve things. They're recognized. They make a lot of money. They're accomplished and impressive, and people are proud of them. But they're alone, not because they're unlikable, but because success required sacrifices, time, presence, relationships. They chose achievement over connection, and now they're successful, but lonely. They have everything except people who really know them. Option B, they're happy. They have deep relationships. They're connected to family and friends and community. People love them, and they love people. They're present. They're known, they matter to the people around them. But they're not successful in the traditional sense. They didn't achieve great things. They won't be recognized or celebrated. They're just happy and connected and ordinary. Which would you choose for them? Success or connection? Achievement or relationship? Impressive or happy? Comment A or B. Be honest. Not what you think you should want, what you actually want. If you could only give them one, which would it be? This question reveals what we actually believe about what makes a good life, not what we say we believe, what we actually believe deep down when forced to choose. Second question. This one tests something different. This one tests how far our values actually extend beyond our immediate circle. You have 10,000. It's yours. A money you've saved or money you've been given. It's real money that you could use for your family, for yourself, for your own needs and wants. And you learn about someone you've never met, someone in your community, someone struggling, medical bills they can't pay, rent they're behind on, a genuine need that a 10,000 would completely solve. You've verified it's real. This isn't a scam. This is a real person with a real problem that your 10,000 would fix. But giving them the money means you don't have it. Your family doesn't have it. Whatever you are going to use it for, whether that's savings or vacation or home repairs or future security, you don't get to do that. You have to choose. Option A, you keep the 10,000. You use it for your family, for your needs, for your future. That's not selfish. That's taking care of your own. That's being responsible. Your family is your priority, and this money serves them better than it serves a stranger. Option B, you give the 10,000 to the person who needs it. Your family will be fine without it. You'll figure it out. But this person won't be fine without help. And you have the ability to help. So you do, even though it costs you something real. What do you choose? A or B? Keep it or give it? Comment honestly. This isn't about whether you're generous or selfish. This is about where the boundaries are, about how far our responsibility extends, about whether caring about strangers is something we actually do or just something we wish we did. Third question. This one is about consistency, about whether we stick to our values when they become inconvenient. You believe strongly that children shouldn't have smartphones. You've seen the damage. You understand that screens are destroying childhood. You're convinced that children are better off without constant digital access. This is a real belief you hold, not just a vague preference, but a genuine conviction. Your child is 12 years old. Every other child their age has a phone. Your child is being left out, not invited to things because group coordination happens through phones. Feeling isolated because social connections happen digitally. Coming home, sad, asking why they're the only one without a phone. Telling you it's not fair, that you're making their life harder for a principle they don't understand and didn't choose. You could solve this immediately. Just get them a phone. They'd be included. They'd be happy. The daily conflict would end. Your life would be easier. And maybe you're wrong anyway. Maybe the damage isn't as bad as you thought. Maybe they'll be fine. Option A, you give them the phone. You prioritize their happiness and inclusion over your principles. You decide that being part of their peer group matters more than protecting them from screens. You might be right. They might be fine. And at least they won't be isolated and unhappy. Option B, you hold the line. No phone. You maintain your conviction even though it cost your child something real. Even though they're unhappy about it, even though it would be easier to give in, you believe this matters enough to stick to it, even when it's hard. What do you choose, A or B? Give in or hold firm? Comment your answer. This question reveals whether we're willing to pay the cost of our convictions, whether we believe things strongly enough to maintain them when they become difficult, whether our values survive contact with real consequences. Final question. This one is personal. This one tests what we actually do versus what we say we do. You have time, not unlimited time, but discretionary time. A few hours every week that are yours to use however you want. You've been using them for yourself, for hobbies or rest or things you enjoy. You need this time. Life is demanding, and this time is what keeps you balanced. You learn that there's an elderly person in your community who's alone, no family nearby, no regular visitors. They're not in crisis. They're not dying. They're just lonely. A few hours of your time every week just sitting with them, talking. Being present would mean everything to them would transform their experience of being old and alone. You could do this. You have the time, but it would cost you the time you're currently using for yourself. Option A, you keep your time. You need it. Self-care matters. You can't pour from an empty cup. This person's loneliness is sad, but it's not your responsibility. You have your own life and your own needs, and you're allowed to prioritize those. Someone else will help them, or they'll be fine. You keeping your time for yourself doesn't make you a bad person. Option B, you give your time, you visit them weekly. You sacrifice your personal time because you have something they need and they have no other way to get it. Yes, it costs you. Yes, you'll miss that time for yourself. But their need is greater than your want, and you have the ability to help. So you do. What do you choose? A or B? Keep your time or give it. Comment. Honestly, this is the hardest one because this isn't hypothetical for most of you. There probably is someone in your community who needs this, and you probably do have time you could give. This question tests whether we're willing to actually do what we say matters, whether caring about others is theoretical or practical. I asked you 4 questions, 4 scenarios where you had to choose. And your answers, the pattern of your answers reveals something important. If you chose success and keeping what's yours in comfort and your own time, if you chose a for most or all of these, that's honest. That's normal. That's how most people actually operate. Even if it's not what we say we value, you're prioritizing security and family and comfort and self-preservation. That's not wrong. That's human. But it means there's a gap between what we say we value and what we actually choose when tested. If you chose connection and sacrifice and principle and giving, if you chose B for most or all of these, you're either genuinely committed to values that most people only theoretically hold, or you're performing what you think the right answer is. And if it's performance that's worth examining, why do we feel pressured to choose what sounds good over what we'd actually do? What does that gap tell us about ourselves? If you mixed your answers, chose connection, but kept money, held principle, but kept your time, or some other combination, you're like most people trying to balance competing values. Sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. Choosing based on what feels most important in each specific situation rather than following one consistent principle. That's honest. That's human. That's complicated. Here's what I think this test really shows. It's easy to talk about values. It's easy to agree that family matters more than achievement, that presence matters more than productivity, that helping others matters. But when we're forced to choose, when choosing one value means sacrificing another, we discover what we actually prioritize, not what we wish we prioritized, what we actually do when the cost is real. I gave you this test because I've been talking about what matters about family and presence and community and values, and thousands of you have agreed, have said, yes, right, that's what supports your own experiences of trying to live differently. But I wanted to test whether agreement translates to choice, whether we're willing to choose, we'll say matters, when choosing it costs something. We choosing, we don't want to experience this as something. Whether our values survive the moment when they become expensive. Because here's what I've learned. Everyone agrees that connection is more important than achievement. But most people still push their children towards success over happiness. Everyone agrees that we should help others, but most people keep their money and their time for themselves. Everyone agrees that principles matter, but most people compromise them when maintaining them becomes difficult. There's a gap between what we believe and what we do, between what we say matters and what we choose. When choice requires sacrifice, this test was designed to make that gap visible, to show us, not to judge us, but to show us where our actual values lie, what we actually choose when forced to decide. I'm going to watch the comments. I'm going to see how thousands of you answered these questions. and I'm going to learn something about who's watching these videos, about whether the people who agree with what I'm saying about family and values are willing to make choices that align with those values. When the choices are hard, I'm not going to judge your answers. There are no right answers. These are genuinely difficult questions where both options have merit, where choosing either way says something true about what you value. But I am going to use what I learned to understand who I'm talking to, whether the message about prioritizing what matters is resonating just theoretically, or whether it's actually changing how people make choices. And maybe this test will do something for you too. Maybe it will make visible a gap you didn't realize was there between what you think you value and what you actually choose. Between the life you say you want and the choices you're actually making, that gap isn't judgment. That gap is information. Information you can use to align your choices better with your actual values. To close the distance between what you say matters and what you actually do. Here's what I want you to do after this test. Look at your answers. Look at the pattern of what you chose. And then look at your life, your actual daily choices, how you spend your time, how you spend your money, what you prioritize, what you sacrifice for. Do your daily choices match the answers you gave, or is there a gap? Are you choosing connection over success in theory, but somehow always pushing for achievement? Are you saying you'd help strangers, but not actually giving when opportunities arise? Are you claiming principles matter, but compromising them when they're inconvenient? Are you saying you'd give time, but not actually visiting that lonely person who needs it? If there's a gap, and for most of us there is, that's okay, that's normal, that's human. But now you see it, and seeing it gives you the option to close it, to make choices that align better with what you actually value, to live with less distance between your beliefs and your actions. Start with one thing. Pick one answer where you chose what matters over what's easy, and then actually do it. Actually choose that way in real life. Choose connection over success in one decision. Give money to someone who needs it in one situation. Hold to principle even when it's hard. Give your time to someone lonely even though it costs you. One choice, one action, one alignment between what you say you value and what you actually do. See what happens. See how it feels. See if it moves you closer to the life you actually want instead of the life you've accidentally created through 1,000 small choices that didn't align with your values. I'm testing something big, and you're part of it. You answered questions, hard questions, questions that forced you to choose between things that both matter. Your answers revealed something. Maybe something you already knew, maybe something that surprised you, but something real about what you actually value when forced to decide. Now the question is, what do you do with that information? Do you ignore it? Do you tell yourself the gap between values and choices doesn't matter? Or do you use it? Use it to make different choices, better choices, choices that align with what you actually believe matters. This test isn't the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of seeing clearly, of understanding what you actually value, of closing the gap between belief and action, of living with integrity, where your choices match your values and your life reflects what you actually think matters. I'm watching your answers, learning from them, seeing what thousands of people actually choose when tested. And I'll use what I learned to understand you better, to speak to what actually matters to you, to help close the gap between what we say we value and what we actually do. Thank you for being part of this test, for answering honestly, for being willing to examine the gap between values and choices, for considering whether your life actually reflects what you believe matters. I want to tell you something I've realized through all of this, through months of talking about values and family and what matters, through watching thousands of you respond and share your stories and make changes in your lives. The gap between what we value and what we choose, that gap isn't a failure. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's just information. It's data about who we actually are versus who we want to be. And that data is useful if we're willing to look at it honestly. Most of us spend our lives not looking at that gap. We tell ourselves stories. We say we value family, but we work 80 hours a week, and we tell ourselves it's for the family. We say we value helping others, but we keep everything for ourselves, and we tell ourselves we need it more. We say principles matter, but we compromise them constantly, and we tell ourselves the situation was complicated. We're very good at justifying the gap, at explaining why what we choose doesn't match what we value, at maintaining the illusion that we're living according to our beliefs, even when our actions tell a different story. This test was designed to make that harder, to force you to choose without the ability to justify or explain or tell yourself stories. Just choose A or B. What would you actually do? And in that moment of choosing, you revealed something true. Now you have a choice about what to do with that truth. You can dismiss it. You can tell yourself it was just a hypothetical test and doesn't mean anything about your real life. You can go back to the comfortable stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you value. Or you can use it. You can look at the gap between your test answers and your daily choices and decide to close it. Not all at once, not perfectly, but intentionally. One choice at a time. One alignment between values and actions. That's what this test is really for. Not to judge you, not to make you feel bad, but to give you information you can use to show you clearly where the gaps are so you can decide consciously, intentionally, whether to close them. Share this video if you want others to take this test. Comment your answers to all 4 questions, A or B, for each one. Subscribe